Good afternoon, YouTube fam. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I am here with Karin Carr, my friend and realtor from, where are you from? Savannah,
Savannah.
Savannah, Georgia. Woohoo, Savannah. And she's going to be talking to us about the differences between Raleigh and Savannah, Georgia, which they're pretty unique towns, each of them. And there's going to be a lot of differences. And I've had some people, since she and I actually talked, I've had two people say, hey, you should do a video about the difference between Savannah and Raleigh. So I was like, well, look at that. We already have it on the books. Thanks for joining us today, Karin. Appreciate you being here.
Of course. I think it's cool that you read their minds, Ellen.
Yeah, well, we try and asking lots of questions too. Okay, so let's start first with the things that people love in particular about your area. You go first, and then I'm going to talk about Raleigh.
You got it. Well, the things that we love about Savannah, let me tell you why I moved here. So I lived in Northern California, right outside of Napa, which was gorgeous in its own right? I could go wine tasting every day if I wanted to, but insanely expensive. And my parents moved to Savannah. And every time we came to visit them, we were like, this place is so cool. You've got those live oak trees that are dripping with the Spanish moss. So it kind of has this creepy, haunted looking vibe. It kind of reminded me of New Orleans. I'd never been to New Orleans before, but in my head, I thought this is probably what it looks like. Yes. Then there's the beach. We can go to the beach anytime we want to because it's on the coast. It's got this cool historic downtown area with buildings that are hundreds of years old. So it's like stepping back in time. It's very interesting. It's on a river, and what else can I tell you about it? And the cost of living here is so much less than other places. So in California, our 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square foot house was $500,000. We were able to move to Savannah and buy a house here for $300,000 at the time. That was like 3,300 square feet, brand new construction on a half-acre lot. Wow. So your money went so much farther moving here. And therefore, we had a better quality of life. Like we could actually go do stuff. We weren't making the mortgage payment and eating top ramen because every extra dollar went to paying the mortgage payment.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through as you're talking. I'm scrolling through some historic sections of Savannah, and it's really cool. Really beautiful.
It is. I mean, there are some cobblestone streets. There are all of these squares. There's something like 50, I believe, squares in the middle of town, and they've got big statues. If you've seen Forrest Gump when he's sitting on the bench with his box of chocolates, that was filmed in Savannah. That's what it looks like here.
Okay, awesome. I also want to show people those the trees that you were talking about.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. It's really neat when they're on either side of the street and then they come up and they make this canopy. So when you're driving down the street, it's like driving through a tree tunnel, and all of that Spanish moss that's kind of hanging down. It's very ethereal and beautiful looking. It's neat.
I'm going to see if I can. Oh yeah, that's really beautiful.
We're not seeing the trees on screen.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to grab them real quick. This is the first time I've actually used this screen share option on this. Yeah, here we go.
No, it's working great.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so pretty. So that's the Wormslow Plantation, which is this very famous plantation here. You can go and take tours, but it's just so neat looking. And having moved from a place where there were palm trees, right? There's you don't see that in other areas of the country. And you come here and you're like, this is just so interesting.
I think South Carolina's got a lot of that.
They do.
There was in Florida, where like in the northern parts of Florida as well, kind of central and northern Florida, and it's really pretty there as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Raleigh and the stuff that people love here. It's not quite as like Savannah's just got a vibe to it that Raleigh doesn't have. Raleigh's pretty generic. It's a cool place. And it's known for like all of its amazing parks. Is kind of one of the big things, parks and greenways. So let me screen share this. Hang on.
And you're really known for being a tech savvy area, wouldn't you say?
It is. We've got the Research Triangle Park where there's lots of tech businesses. So this is, I think that's Umstead Park, actually. That's Umstead Park. And then we've got, are you seeing me go through these
Yes.
different things? Yes. Okay. So, this is Yates Mill County Park right here. We've got Pullen Park, which is like a little, there's a merry-go-round and boat rides and just really cool stuff. I mean, and everywhere around Raleigh is just full of these things. I mean, you can go, I think that's probably the Eno River. So we've got rivers and lakes and parks and a million greenways. I mean, just miles and miles of them. That's Yates Mill County Park again. So that's a
pretty
historic mill where everyone around here used to get their flower ground, and they turned it into a park and a little museum. This is Dorothea Dix Park where they have concerts, and every summer they plant like 5 gabillion sunflowers, and there's the sunflower fields that you can walk through, and everybody takes their photo ops. This is the Neuse River Greenway, it's like a 30-mile trail that runs the whole eastern side of Raleigh. And then on the western side, we've got the American Tobacco Trail, which is another 30-mile trail. But this is a really cool park. It's what's it called? I can't remember. A Sassafras Playground at Laurel Hills Park, and it's designed for special needs kids. And so all the climb on stuff or whatever is all friendly to people with special needs, which is really interesting. So we've just got tons of parks and green spaces, and it's just very outdoorsy. If you want to be outside, this is the place to be. Even in the winter, year round, there's just so much. I can't even tell people like how many different things there are to do here as far as just being outside. So we've got a park that's the art museum. There's an art park, so it's all like there are art exhibits throughout the park, and it's gorgeous. I mean,
how cool.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Let me see if I can. It should be on here because it's such a popular park. This is just a list of our parks, which I'm not sharing anymore. Never mind. Anywho, okay, so the other thing that Raleigh is known for is really low crime. And I think we have like probably one of the lowest crime cities in the country. So any city is going to look different compared to Raleigh. And I'm curious, hey, Mary, thanks for joining us. Mary says, not too long ago, I was attracted to research Savannah, Georgia. It looks so interesting and beautiful. I hope to visit there sometime in the future. You definitely should. I've never been there either, actually. I've driven through, but I've never actually stopped in Savannah before. So you've been to Raleigh, haven't you? You told me that you have.
I have. So my husband used to work for Siemens Healthcare for many, many years, and they're based in Cary, which is one of the suburbs of Raleigh. And so every time he would go there on a business trip, if it was over the summer, we usually just tagged along and we made a vacation out of it.
Yeah. What did you think?
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. There's a place, I think it's in Apex, that has all you can eat crab legs. That's my favorite place. But I've been to a lot of those parks that you were talking about. They were wonderful, especially when my son was little. It's beautiful. It's a really, and Savannah's very, very flat. So I liked whenever we would go anywhere that was hilly and had, ups and downs instead of just flat as far as the eye could see. That was really nice too.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't feel hilly when we moved here from Central Virginia, which is very hilly. Yeah. Blue Ridge Mountains kind of area, foothills, but not in the mountains. But this seemed flat to us. But now, after spending some time in Texas, we moved back here and we were like, oh, wow, everything is it's beautiful and hilly. Anyway, Okay, so crime is the next thing I wanted to talk about. I actually did pull up some crime things, and there's obviously differences, but I wanted to point out one thing. So Raleigh, this is Raleigh, and this has actually changed over time. And the greener it is, the lower the crime. And that actually used to be yellow. But I noticed that if you go down here, you can see like the dates. So this is 2019, but I looked at Savannah's and they haven't reported since 2004.
What, citydata.com? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if they report other places.
There are different crime map websites. Yeah. The one that I use all the time, and of course the name totally escapes me. Every city is going to have crime, right? And it's different types. And I've personally never felt unsafe walking around in Savannah, even if it was after dark, even if it was late at night. I've never felt unsafe. We live in the suburbs, probably half an hour to 40 minutes from not even half an hour from the downtown area. And we're so lax. Like we hardly ever even lock our exterior doors. We hardly ever lock the car doors. Maybe we're naive, but I just feel so safe that half the
Yeah.
time I don't even think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's like that here too. That and yeah, we probably are lax. I should lock my car. I try and remember to lock my car actually. People watching me on YouTube are like, where's she live? I'm gonna go check out her
right.
car.
Let's go zoom in and find her house now.
There's nothing in there. I'll tell you that right now. Anyway. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of real estate. So in Raleigh, what's the housing market like in Savannah? What's kind of just generally?
So until a year ago, it was extremely affordable and it was not a hot seller's market. And I would say the median price was about 240,000 a year ago. You would have the opportunity to go see a house and take some time to think about it. And there were not 17 offers on it. It was a very normal type market. And then February came, and then we went on lockdown on March 18th. So March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. And for whatever reason, that is a huge, huge event in Savannah. Hundreds of thousands of people come to Savannah for St. Patrick's Day.
Wow, I had
Don't
no
ask
idea.
me why.
I had no
It's not like we have a huge Irish population here. People just like to drink and drink heavily, I think. So they would come to Savannah for St. Patrick's Day, and the kids take the day off school because the traffic is so insane. They get the day off, and then they never went back. So St. Patrick's Day came, they went to school on the 16th, they took the 17th off, and then they were done for the rest of the year. And in Chatham County, which is where Savannah is, they're still doing virtual school. I live in a different county. And so we did go back to school in August, which I'm very grateful for because being a homeschool mom 100% of the time, bless you that do it voluntarily. I don't know how you do that.
I'm running at the same time. How do you run a business and homeschool?
Right. Oh my goodness. I mean, it was hard just from March until the end of May when they got out of school.
Yeah.
So then as I was doing all my research for this call, the median sales price has gone up to about 314. So it went up a good $75,000 in the last year.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think it's probably similar to Raleigh. I don't think I put the median. I thought, median price 318,000. Built in 1997 is kind of our median price.
Okay. And ours is 314, and the median age was, where did I write it down? I think 1991.
Okay. So very, very similar. And I didn't pull the comps or the data for last year, but that sounds about the same. It was definitely well in the twos in Raleigh last year.
It's interesting how, I mean, after we were on the stay-at-home orders were enforced and we were all essentially quarantined for a long time. I mean, we didn't go to a restaurant for like 78 days, which was unheard of in my household.
8 days.
I will tell you, I am not the world's greatest cook. And so if my husband's not cooking, I encourage us to go out. And for us to not go out to eat at all for over 2 months was insane. Wow. And then to see how the housing market... What was that?
Your delivery during that time, or
there was takeout and delivery, but there was no in-person dining from like March 17th until I think it was early May-ish. I'm trying to remember now. And then even after they opened back up, we were all like afraid to go. And so we still didn't go for a couple of more weeks. And then we sat on the patio and like just wanted to see how things were going. And it was amazing to me to see the way the housing market just took off like racehorses, and they, ready, set, go, bang, and they just out of the gate. That's what happened to our housing market. And so now it's tough, in the first time buyer price range, it's tough to compete. Like you got to see that house and make a decision right now, because if you take overnight to think about it, sorry, it's gone by morning. It's pretty insane. And our average days on market is around 68 days for a house in the first time buyer price point. So we're saying 350,000 and below. It's average days on market is 68 days, but that's from the day it goes on the MLS to the day it closes. So that's pretty much maybe a week to 10 days on the market. Somebody comes along and writes an offer. Maybe they want 45 days to close, and that's it.
Okay. So you guys measure differently, which makes it hard to compare because ours
Oh.
days on market ends when it goes under contract.
Oh, okay. Ours, it ends when it actually closes.
Okay, that's interesting. So ours is different for a price point, but it's 4 days on market for under $350,000. Now that's median, and if I did average, it would be more. But the majority of homes that are presented well to the market will sell immediately. As a matter of fact, they would sell on day one, but realtors have gotten smart and they're making sure that it gets through the weekend so everybody will have an opportunity to make an offer because you don't want that first offer. It's probably not the best one. Although people
Right.
are smart to that, and now they're like, all right, here's 30,000 over. Is that the best offer? I just want it, you know? So that's happening in order to just get it before the whole war starts. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It
Yeah.
is. When I worked in California back during 2008, 2009, that's how it was. It was insane, where the prices dropped literally 50% of their house's value in about 6 to 12 months. So you bought
Wow.
your house for 550 and now it was worth 250, 300 at most. And if
Wow.
you decided to sell, it was literally a feeding frenzy like that, where people were just it was crazy. So it's not quite that bad here, except in the lowest price points. I would
Yeah.
love to buy an investment property. I can't find anything. I
Yeah. Yeah.
anything under 150,000. If you don't see it the day that it goes on the market, it's too late.
Yeah. That doesn't exist here anymore. 150,000 underneath that. I don't even know. That's a lot. That's the land. That's not the house.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, you can't find if there's something for under 150. That's well, I should say there are some cheaper condos that you can still find rarely, but for the most part, 150,000 is just going to be either just the lot or a dilapidated, probably a tear down or
Same
something.
here. It's in Savannah. It's probably a tear down. If we get out into the outskirts, so out where I live, maybe half an hour to 40 minutes outside of the city, there might be 3 of those, and one of them is a mobile home. Yeah, they're very, very few and far between,
Okay,
which is terrible because a year ago in December of 2019, I bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for $90,000. And yes, it needed to be renovated, but it was not a tear down. It just needed cosmetic updating.
yeah, just so many people relocating and buying. I think so. What do you think? Do you think that the market is going to continue to do well like this, or do you think this is just a small bubble from the pandemic and then it'll go away in a year or so? What are your thoughts?
Man, I wish I had a crystal ball. I really wish that I had a crystal ball and could say that. I think it's going to mostly continue. I don't think in my area enough people have been adversely affected and took forbearance that they're then going to lose their house, which is, I don't think we're going to see anything like what we saw in 2008 with the housing crash. I can see that it might slow down a little bit and maybe prices would stabilize a bit. I don't think we're going to have a huge downturn, but I don't think it's going to continue at the pace that it is either. This has been crazy growth over the last 12 months, and I don't think it's going to continue as fast as it has been.
Yeah. I feel like one of the reasons that people are doing all of this relocating is because so many businesses that went virtual are deciding to stay virtual. And so it's giving people the opportunity to just say, hey, what kind of place do I want to live in? And so they're checking out all kinds of places. And so I kind of feel like that is going to continue. And it's millions of people. I don't think it's like
Agreed.
a small number. It's like a lot of people.
Right.
I think so. I think is actually going to stay like this in the smaller to medium sized cities. I think the bigger cities probably won't see that, but the smaller to medium sized cities, I think, will continue to have this kind of competition for some time. But all right, let me share screen again, and I'm going to show people a typical $350,000 house in Raleigh compared to Savannah. So let's see, winding something trail. There we go. This is something that you would typically see in Raleigh for 350,000. Actually, I think this house is just a little bit overpriced, just my opinion. It's a split foyer, kind of modernisty looking property, and it has this double staircase. So you walk into the foyer and you can either go up or go down. And those tend to sell for a little bit less, but this one's pretty nice, in nice condition in a nice area. I'll look at the kitchen real quick. Okay, so that is Raleigh. And then in Savannah, let me share screen again. you get these really cool, I think, was it this one? I think it was this one. Yes, it was this one. So, Karin, you want to talk about the typical house in Savannah at this price point?
Sure. If you're in the downtown area, so the historic district or the Victorian district, this is very typical from what you see, where the houses are very tall and skinny. They're straight back. They have tiny, tiny backyards. If they have anything at all, it might be a little courtyard in the back. Some people have just decided that's where they're going to park their cars. So it essentially has no backyard whatsoever. They are built in the 1800s, early 1900s. They've got some gorgeous architectural details like these transom windows that you can see. A lot of the people try to keep it as architecturally, that keep the integrity as much as they can while still trying to update it and make it livable by today's standards. So this one I think is very interesting how they've kept some of those chandeliers, they kept the hardwood floors, but they did modernize the kitchen and whatnot. They replaced the windows so you actually get some double pane windows, because let's talk about the heat, and shall we? It is hot here in the summertime and we need to keep that heat out, and we need air conditioning.
So
I don't know how they lived in these houses with no air conditioning.
these aren't original windows?
No, I'm sure they're not. Are they?
They look it. They look old.
Well, maybe it's just paint, but from the picture, to me, these looked like they had been replaced, but I don't have my glasses on, so maybe they're old.
You know your market better than I do, but this is beautiful. This is they're so pretty to look at, but I wouldn't want to live in a house this age.
Well, you're right. I mean, we were talking about that. I have a client that moved here from California and bought one of these houses and was not really prepared for how much stuff would need to get modernized over time. And we're talking about electrical and plumbing and the roof, and the chimney was pulling away from the building. And, it's a lot. It's a lot more than carpet and paint and let's update the kitchen.
Yeah. We actually bought a 1920s house about 15 years ago, and that exact chimney thing happened. Mm-hmm. But it was freezing. I had no idea like how much colder it was going to be in a house that old. It was not comfortable. Okay. So what is properties 350 to 600,000? Our average days on the market for that is about 4 days. Average age is 1993 and the size is about 2550. What about you guys?
Okay, so our average days on market is 68, but I would say that probably is somewhere between 5 and 10 days before it goes under contract. The average age is 2005. So a lot of the newer homes, to get that price, you're typically going out to the suburbs and you're getting something that's a little bit newer. And the average size is 1,965 square feet.
Okay. So this is an interesting thing. So from 600 to 800,000, where is your luxury market? Where does that start? Do you know that number?
Ours is 800,000, I would say.
Yeah, that's about where we are too. But so 600 to 800 is kind of like, high end, but not quite luxury. But the days on market is less for that price point, 600 to 800 here. It's
interesting. Ours is not. Ours is more. So our average is 135 days, which means it's probably on the market for about 3 to 4 weeks before it goes under contract, maybe a little bit longer.
Okay. Yeah. So we actually, both the luxury and the high end market are only 3 days on market median. And I think it's because so many people moving from high cost of living areas are coming here and they're buying higher cost properties from what, was typical around here. It's really fascinating. 3 days on the market for luxury listings over $800,000.
That is pretty crazy. But when you think about it, like if somebody I have a good friend that lives in New Jersey and she could probably sell her house for $850,000, $900,000. It was built in the 80s. It has a beautiful pool in the backyard. But other than that, it's a pretty
regular
house, right? It's not brand new. It's not on acreage. It's not 4,000 square feet. Yeah. And because she could sell it for that much, if she were to move here and buy something, what you get for that price here is like a mansion.
Luxury. So, yeah. I have so much fun with like California buyers.
Yeah.
Because they're living in like little houses and they come out here and it's like they're walking through a mansion. It's so fun. It's really fun.
Know.
Yeah. Okay.
Sticker shock in a good way for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's just nice because, being in real estate can be really stressful. A lot of times when people are especially if you're helping buyers at the bottom end of the price structure, it's hard, in this market, and you don't get any repairs and you don't have a lot of money anyway, and trying to get into the market at 300,000, it's rough. So it's just nice to sometimes work with, the other end where it's not so stressful, like every little thing isn't going to break you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you feel, I don't know that.
Oh, I totally feel that way. There's an agent on my team, Kimberly, who lives in Augusta, which is about 2 hours from Savannah. She has a client that is an investor, and they're trying to buy a property somewhere around 150, 160 to have it be a rental property. And man, she said, it is brutal out there. We are writing offers. We're getting beaten out. They're writing offers on for sale by owners, and the owner knows, like, I got 18 offers in the first 2 days. I'm going to hold out for as much money as I can. I'm not going to make any repairs. I'm not going to pay for any of they feel like they hold all of the cards. So why should they have to give any concessions at all? And man, they are raking these buyers over the coals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we've definitely seen that too. It's very frustrating. Eric asks, how competitive are the low 600s in the Cary area? I think it depends on how well prepared to the market. I think if it's a beautiful home and, ready to go, it can go very quickly. Not every home is having a bidding war at that price, definitely. But it really just kind of depends on like how competitive the actual house is, how old it is, what kind of updates it's had. If it's been updated and it's, feels newer, definitely a lot more competition. So it's kind of relative. Taxes. So our taxes here can be really low compared to some places, but I don't know how it is with Savannah. But here, our in-city taxes are about 1%, and that's pretty much any of the towns like Raleigh, Cary, Apex, Holly Springs. Any of our suburbs are roughly 1%. They might vary a little bit, but then there's so our addresses aren't always inside the city limits. So you can have a Cary address and not be in Cary and be like, in a little pocket that's not in the city. So you don't pay city taxes. And those taxes can be like, 0.6 to 0.7 or so % of the purchase price. So, or not the purchase price, the value, the estimated value by the tax record. So, which is a whole different thing. So what about in Savannah?
It's very, very comparable here. We do this weird thing called millage, and I'm not even going to pretend to understand how that works, but the millage rate is it's a property tax that's based on the county where you are, and it's some sort of percentage, like it's 0.0114. So you take the annual property taxes times this number, and how they come up with it, I don't know. So typically it's around 1%, a little bit less. So for example, I was pulling up a house where the median price here would be $314,000, and the property taxes would probably be about $2,800 a year. So slightly less than 1%, unless you're waterfront, unless you are on the river, on the marsh, on the beach. Now, of course, they're going to go up. So on Tybee Island, which is where our beach is, the median price there was about $479,000, which, considering that you've got freaking oceanfront property for $479, it is not bad. And then the property taxes for a house at that price would probably be about $4,700 a year. So now we're looking at, yes, definitely 1%, possibly even a little bit higher, depending on how close to the ocean you are. This one particular house I looked at, it was not beachfront. It was one house back from the beach. So there's like a little alley that leads out to the beach. And the very front house was not for sale, but the next one back was $479,000. It needed some updating. It was built in the 70s and it looked it. But then once it would be all fixed up, you're literally the ocean is right there. Like, how great would that be?
Yeah. So were you saying that the tax rate can be a little bit higher on the beach, or just the prices are higher? Because, okay,
both.
So the rate and the prices are higher. Okay, that makes sense. All right. What else do we have? Commute times. So around here, I'm going to say most people drive about 30 minutes to work. It can be longer than that. It can be 45 minutes, or a little bit more in some of the real outlying areas. But we have got some big highways that are in the works that I think is going to really change that and make that even less. So I think overall it's pretty drivable here, 30 minutes or so for most people. What about in Savannah? It's smaller, so it's probably less than here.
Well, I'd say 30 minutes is very typical. We're kind of sprawling in that, the city center was this big and then as they expanded out, but we've got ocean on one side, so there's only so far you can go. If you were to drive from one end all the way across, it could take an hour and 15 minutes. But
Okay.
most people are not commuting that distance. They're usually going from the suburbs into the city or the south side of Savannah. So I would say 30 to 45 minutes is typical. But most people probably a lot less than that. If they don't have as far to go, we're probably talking 20 to 30 minutes. Our freeways are very small, though. We do not have these freeways that are like 5 lanes across in both directions. I'd say like most of them are 2 lanes, maybe 3. Occasionally they get wider and then they go right back to being skinny again. So we don't have the greatest highway structure in the whole world. I think when they built all these freeways, they completely underestimated how many people were going to be using them. And so we've got a lot of on-ramps and off-ramps that are under construction right now, trying to make them a little bit better to accommodate the traffic. But I moved here from Atlanta. There is no traffic like living in Atlanta. So when I moved here and people complain about traffic, I was like, have you ever been to Atlanta? This is nothing. Like if it takes you an extra 10 minutes to get where you're going because of traffic here, I just laugh that people think that was terrible traffic.
Yeah, and Raleigh's kind of the same way, honestly. Most rush hours you add 10. There's one area that if you're trying to get up to Chapel Hill, during rush hour, that can be really long. It's 25 minutes for me, not rush hour. And I've driven over an hour to get there during rush hour, but most other places you're trying to get to aren't that bad. That one in particular, just as bad. But I was going to ask you one other question that I can't, it's now slipped my mind. Oh, jobs. What do people do there for a living?
We are a huge tourism destination. So restaurants and retail. And then we have the Savannah port. So those giant container ships that come through with the containers on top that I don't know if you've ever seen them. They go right down the Savannah River. And so if you were moving to Hong Kong and you had to put all of your worldly goods in a big container, they put it on a ship, it sails to Hong Kong, they unload it there. Those go through Savannah. So the port is huge. And Gulfstream Private Jets is a huge employer here as well. Rockin' like a G6. They build those here. Between Gulfstream and the Savannah port and tourism, those are the big ones. The military is also big here. We have Hunter Army Airfield and Fort Stewart, which are 2 military bases, Army posts that are major employers. Those are the big ones that I can think of.
Okay. Yeah. So here it's technology, pharmaceuticals, education with all of our universities, and government, since we are the state capital. So yeah, lots of different types of career options. All right. And last point, schools. What do people say about the schools in Savannah?
Sadly, Chatham County is not known for its excellent school district. If you live out closer to the ocean, those schools are ranked a little bit higher than they are in the city itself. There are a lot of private schools around here. And if people live in Savannah, many of them consider private schools. If you go to the 2 neighboring counties, so Bryan County, which is where Richmond Hill is, and Effingham County, which is Rincon and Springfield, where I live, those are known for having better rated public schools. So people that move here and want to go to public schools typically consider Effingham and Bryan counties if that's where they want to be. Or if they're okay with private school, then they go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, ours are all fairly good. We have a county-wide school system, and all of our suburbs of Raleigh are in the same county. And it's all, we are a triangle. So we've got 3 main cities, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. But in Raleigh, the county includes all of those towns like 10 different towns that surround the city. And the county schools, the county system manages all the schools for all of those cities. And so there's a lot of continuity across all of it. It's all, all the hiring is done across, so all the money is spread out throughout the whole thing. So it's not like there's wealthy schools and poor schools or whatever. So I think generally they're pretty good because of that. They seem to rate well. There are some that are lower rated, but the teachers are still good in those schools, even if the rankings aren't as good as they could be. But all right. Well, does anybody, we have no questions. This is like my first live where I didn't get any questions. So I guess Savannah's a small town, or small-ish city. But anyway, I think that's pretty much everything. Did you have anything else to add, Karin?
Not that I can think of. I mean, I've been to the Raleigh area and I think it's beautiful, and Savannah is awesome as well. And either place, it would not be a bad place to live in my book.
Yeah. So, okay. So how about this? If you had to choose between Raleigh and Savannah, what thing would draw you to Savannah instead of Raleigh?
The ocean. Like, seriously, I am a beach girl. I love to go to the beach. I love to swim. I love to boogie board. I love me some seafood. I can put away crab legs and shrimp and oysters and all the things. When we moved to Atlanta for a couple of years, that was what I missed most. I missed being by the ocean. I went to college in Utah. I was completely landlocked for 17 years. It didn't take me 17 years to finish college, but I went there and then I stayed. And as soon as we were able to move out to the coast again, like, that is just, I don't know, something about the ocean just calls to my soul. So
yeah, I hear you. For me, it's the hills, which is not in Raleigh. I prefer farther west where there's more hills. But I would say for Raleigh, probably what would draw you here over there would be just, I guess, probably the larger city resources, which we didn't really talk about, like museums and shopping and things like that I would expect were more here, but maybe they're not. But I'm just thinking like size of the city. There's probably just a lot more resources in a larger city. I don't know. How many Costco's do you have?
you had to go there, didn't you? We have zero. We have zero Costco.
Oh, you don't have a Costco. See,
we do not. We have Sam's Clubs, which are okay. Sam Walton, don't hunt me down and kill me, but Costco is awesome. We do not have Trader Joe's.
You have Whole Foods? Surely you have Whole Foods. Yeah. Okay.
There's one Whole Foods, in the entire metro area. Savannah has probably, the Tri-County area only has maybe 400,000 people max. It's not that big of a city. It's a very small city. We don't have tons and tons of museums. We don't have tons and tons of that kind of thing. It's more like it's a small city with a ton of tourists. So people come there, they eat, they shop, they go to the beach, they rent boats, they go on dolphin tours and stuff like that, and then they go home again. So we don't have as much of that stuff because we're really not a great big city.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I figured that was probably the biggest difference because there's a lot of other similarities. All right. Well, that's all she wrote for today, folks. Thanks everybody for stopping by. We appreciate you watching, and I hope y'all have a great afternoon. Bye.